Hi guys, in today's video we're going to be painting a Kroot Rogue Trader from the Blackstone Fortress box set. But first of all I want to say a huge thank you to my YouTube channel sponsors Goblin Gaming. If you check the description box down below you'll find a direct link to their web store, and every time you purchase something from that link it greatly helps my YouTube channel by directly funding me. In this tutorial I wanted to paint the Kroot up with a lot of earth tones, so you'll see a lot of browns being used in this tutorial. Also guys, I kept getting a foggy lens on my camera as it was really cold in my loft, and for some reason I think it was to do with the fact that I was using the hairdryer that I kept fogging the lens up, so some of the footage had to be cut out. So I've tried to make the best of this tutorial as I possibly could, and I still hope you really enjoy it. Okay guys, as always these tutorials are really long, so go grab yourselves a nice hot drink and get settled in, or maybe an ice cold beer, and we'll get started with the tutorial. Here you can see the Kroot has been placed on a resin base. This base is available from Dark Art Miniatures. I'll put a link in the description box below and you can go and check out their wonderful bases they sell on their web store. This is from their sci-fi deck range. Now we're priming the miniature using Alclad 2's Lacquer Primer Grey. It's important to know that you have to use a good quality airbrush with PTFE solvent proof seals if you're using a lacquer primer, so it doesn't ruin your airbrush. Also make sure you're well ventilated and wearing a respirator if you're using lacquer primers, as they're very harmful if inhaled. I'm priming the miniature at about 20 psi and 3 to 4 inches away, and I'm building up the primer layer nice and slowly so we get a nice even smooth coverage. I wanted the Kroot's flesh to be really vibrant, so I started off with a really bright green, so I'm using Vallejo Game Air Scorpina green. At this stage I really don't worry about overspray as everything's going to be touched up with a brush later on, so overspray is not a problem. After letting the Scorpina green dry, we're coming in with the Army Painter's Quick Shade green tone. We're going to be airbrushing this onto the miniature, and it will work just the same as it would with a brush, but it will save a lot of time and you'll probably get a lot less staining. Now we're going to do a little dry brushing using the Army Painter's small Wargamers dry brush. It's important to note that you need to remove pretty much all of the paint on some paper towel, and then you can slowly build up the dry brush of the yellow. We're using Avalon Sunset by Games Workshop. Now we're going to start painting the cloak using Games Workshop's base paint Xandri Dust. I always add a little water to my paint and try to paint in 2 thin layers. The reason for this is it's much better to paint in thin layers, as if you paint in 1 thick layer you'll probably leave brush stroke marks and it'll obscure detail. So take your time to build up the paint in 2 thin layers. Mephiston Red is painted onto the gate on the base, and it's also going to be painted on the little dagger that's hiding underneath the cloak. XV88 is painted onto the butt of the rifle and a few other areas on the miniature. I really like the metallic range from the Army Painter. They dry really highly reflective. Here we're going to be using Greedy Gold, and as you can see I'm painting the armour plates on the front of the Kroot's legs. Games Workshop's layer paint Fire Dragon Bright is going to be painted onto the Kroot's dreadlocks. Now we're going to paint some of the metallic areas like the rifle using Vallejo metal colour Gunmetal Grey. Games Workshop's Seraphim Sepia is going to be painted onto the cloak of the Kroot. All of the areas that were painted with XV88 and Mournfang Brown are going to be washed with the Army Painter's Strong Tone. The Army Painter Dark Tone is painted onto all of the silver metallics. This includes the base and the rifle. Here I've added a little Xandri dust to Mournfang Brown, and I'm going around all of the areas that are painted in Mournfang Brown, and I'm slowly highlighting all of the areas with the brush. Games Workshop shade Caribou Crimson is going to be washed on all of the red areas. This includes the grate on the base, the sword, and also the Kroot's orange dreadlocks. Now we're going to airbrush some Vallejo Game Air Bone White. It's important to note that I'm working here at about 15 psi really closely, and I'm making sure that I don't get any overspray on any other areas of the miniature. Now we're going to create some shade using Vallejo Game Air Charred Brown. It's important to note that I'm being very careful not to get any overspray on other parts of the miniature, and I'm just building up some of the charred brown towards the bottom third of the cloak. Fenrisian Grey is going to be painted onto the base. There's a little area on the base that looks like it has markings. So I'm using the Fenrisian Grey to just pick out the markings on the base. All the metallics, including the gun, the base, the shoulder pad and other areas on the miniature, get highlighted using Vallejo Game Air Silver. And here we have our finished Kroot Rogue Trader. There's a few things that I didn't have footage for that I wanted to film for the tutorial, like painting of the hair. I dry brushed the second third of the Kroot's dreadlocks with Avalon Sunset and the tips using Games Workshop's Flash Gits Yellow. All of the cloak was hard edge highlighted using Vallejo Game Air Bone White, and I think that's about it, guys. I really enjoyed painting this Kroot miniature. It's a lovely looking miniature, and again, the Blackstone Fortress box set looks great fun to play. I really can't wait to play it with my friends. Lastly, guys, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Don't forget to check the description box down below for links to Goblin Gaming's web store, and I'll catch you in the next video.